Hi, I'm Maddie Adams.
And I'm Liz Adams, and you're listening to Courageously Kind, a show dedicated to inspiring courage and spreading kindness.
Our hope is that these conversations spark conversations of your own so we all can find the courage to be kind. So this interview today is kind of a long time in the making. I feel like we've been trying to schedule this interview for a while now.
Yeah, and when we were going over our plans, I was like, how have we not done this interview already?
Liz has asked me 3 times, didn't we talk to Carter already? And we did, but we talked to Carter for his podcast, which we are going to get into. He hosts 2 amazing podcasts that are so aligned with what we hope to do at Courageously Kind. So it's just a no-brainer that we would connect at some point and get to chat about all the awesome stuff he's doing. And we finally get to have him on today. We are so excited. Finally. Yeah, Liz said at least 3 times, haven't we already talked? And we have talked to him, but just not on our show. So we finally were able to get scheduling worked out. Carter is also a college student and hosting 2 podcasts. So he's super busy. We're super busy. But the stars aligned. And we were able to get him on.
Yeah, we can't wait for you to hear this conversation. It's really just 3 college students, just chatting about life and what we're all doing.
Yeah.
To try and make the world a better place. And maybe you can relate.
Without further ado, here's Carter. Let's jump into podcast-y things. But if you want to start by telling us a little bit about yourself, where are you located, where do you go to school, and what are some things you like to do for fun?
Absolutely. Yeah, first, thank you for having me on. It's so fun to talk to you all again. It's always a pleasure. My name is Carter Dvorak. I am a fellow podcaster with Maddie and Liz. I started in the kind of good news, positivity world. My podcast was called PositiviTEA. I did it with some friends I met during a virtual internship in the summer of 2020, which, the time that many podcasts were born, I feel like, which is great. I'm so happy to see it. So we would talk a lot about good news and just kind of the inspiring stories. It was great during COVID to have a lot of vaccine updates and see people being kind to people and not just really awful all the time, because I feel like that was what was getting a lot of the recognition. Sure. Some of it kind of rightfully so. We're talking about a lot of the important issues, but it also, at least for me, I found it helpful to come back to some stories of being kind and some stories of just being optimistic. So that was really fun. I still do PositiviTEA, not as much as I'd like to. It's hard kind of wrangling 4 different people together now that we're all in college. We're not just kind of sitting at home, sitting in our homes hanging out. But kind of as that was coming up, I started more of a personal endeavor. Also, I talked to Maddie and Liz on PositiviTEA, and that was an awesome episode. Yes. And that's how we met almost a year ago now, is I think when I first reached out. It really is.
It feels like so much longer than that.
It is. Yeah. It really does, doesn't it? A year ago, at least senior year marching band season, that feels like forever ago. It's crazy.
Can't believe it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then I started recording this in February. It didn't come out till April of this year. I started another show called the Student Counsel, which is COUNSEL, because I think in speaking puns, just as something you should know about me, is exclusively I think in puns. Which is really fun during Halloween, because I can sit there and be okay, Halloween costumes, Lockwad, Lockwad. Is there anything there? But, so that's really fun. But that show, I started kind of as a senior. I really started it wanting to talk to students at colleges I'd applied to. Of course, I toured them, and I think tour guides are very valuable and, great information. But one-on-one with students, particularly, students that I kind of found through, social media, whether they were doing, TikToks about the school or in, cool kind of clubs, was really nice to reach out. So I started talking to those people. Now that I'm in college, I just really love talking to my friends in college and people at all these other schools. So I've talked to Maddie and Liz about Marywood on that show, which was super fun. I love hearing about other colleges, especially stuff like Marywood that I don't feel I see as much otherwise. So that's really cool. So a lot of my time is taken up by podcasting, things like that. I am a first-year business major at the University of Michigan, so I'm kind of living that life right now, which is really fun. It's a great time in Ann Arbor. The weather has been gorgeous. Football has been fun. sunny and 60s, which is almost uncanny for like the end of October. It's a little bit unsettling, but I am going
Yeah.
to take it as long as I can.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So you mentioned that you host 2 podcasts. What have you learned in your time as a podcast host? Yeah.
Ooh, everything. When I think back to, I was thinking about this recently, like when I think back to, I think even just pre-pandemic, like the person, like who I was kind of pre-pandemic, there's so much I think shifted over that time, and I learned so much. I mean, there's like the fundamentals of like I can operate iMovie and Logic now, which is very nice. So that's great. I think I've learned to be a better listener and like a listener and a conversator, if that's a word, in general. I think that like it's funny at college now. I'm in a consulting club, and like one of the parts of the consulting club is you have to have coffee chats. Usually much less coffee involved than expected. I've had coffee chats at Noodles and Company, all around. So, oh yeah, very fun. But it's funny, like I was talking to somebody, we were talking about it, and I was kind of just, talking about what we do in the podcast, and they're like, so you've been coffee chatting for like 2 years, and I'm like, I guess I really have.
Yeah.
So, but it's really fun. I've learned to like, I love asking questions, and I think that as I've kind of continued down this route, like, I think the first interview we did was like, we had a guest on PositiviTEA, like 3 episodes in. It was I think it was the person who designed our graphics, or maybe like, she was doing our like production. She was kind of running the anchor side of the show, but we had her on, and like, I think it's a good interview, but just the way that I've kind of like geared questions, and like you learn how to ask good questions. You learn how to basically really get to, I think, the core of what people are doing. I see that a lot in your show as well. You guys ask phenomenal questions.
Thank you. It was not always like that. I totally agree. We went back and listened to our first interview too. It was kind of painful to listen to. We were so nervous. It was like a cold email. We had no idea who this person was, but we found their organization and loved it. But yeah, totally agree. You kind of learn on the go.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm. You do. I also feel like I learned, it's not as much of a skill now. During COVID, I feel like doing podcasting, I don't know if you experienced this, helped me be a better, like, operate better on Zoom.
No, for
I don't know what it was, but, like, I had a level of confidence. Like, you know how, like, in Zoom classes, it'd just be kind of radio silence? Like, the teacher would ask a question, you just kind of sit there and be quiet, because, like, I felt over time, like, I increased confidence in Zoom. I wound up a couple times being, like, the only kid on Zoom in some of my, like, classes in person, and I was able to, like, function there, which I think helped by podcasting, by getting comfortable talking in these settings, which opens your world up a lot. Like, you can, the hosts of Positivity were all across the world. The guests that I've talked to have been all across, the U.S., and you guys have the similar experiences. Like, even this, right? I feel like we would never probably see each other in, like, day-to-day life, but it's cool to develop these relationships.
Totally. I feel like that is, like, how we can use technology for good, too. You know what I mean? Like, to get to connect with so many different people. It's awesome.
Yeah.
It really is.
We're taking a course this year called Media Culture and Society, and we talk a lot about this sort of stuff and how we use media and technology and stuff. And one of the theorists talked about, like, a global village and how, like, technology has the power to just, like, connect us all, and I thought that was so cool.
That is so cool. Dang, I want to take that course. Comms majors are the coolest. Like, I definitely want to take some comms classes, some writing classes, like stuff that's not business related at school, because I think it's so cool.
I really have loved it so far. What kind of courses are you taking? Are you, like, mainly business heavy sort of things?
Not yet. The business program at U of M used to be a 3-year program, and then they kind of added on this 4th freshman year. And I think that the class, like, it's a 1-credit business class this semester. We only meet for, like, the first half, and then now it's more like external co-curriculars to go attend and stuff. But it's really there to get you, I think, acclimated to college itself and to the business school, which is it's a nice class to have, just to kind of, like, put you in that space and get you adjusted. Like, I think it's really first week to 7th week, which is, like, the last one that we had. I really definitely felt a lot more comfortable in this business school, and I think they did a really good job with that. So I'm also in an economics class, which is another kind of businessy requirement. But otherwise, I stack my schedule pretty well, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. For anybody in the advising situations, if you're maybe a senior going to go to college in the fall next year, get an advising date as soon as you can. Like, as early as possible. It will suck that you have to do, like, 2 weeks worth of class prep right after graduation, but it will be the, like, most worth it thing in the world because you get to take the cool classes
Yeah.
you want to take. Because, so we have to do a first year writing requirement, and I chose mine. It's a class called Great Performances, and you get to, I like read the description. I was immediately like, I'm in. You get to go to all these different like shows and performances happening in Ann Arbor and like through the U of M school, through
Yeah.
University of Michigan, and then you just got to write about them afterwards. So I've seen Wynton Marsalis
Wow.
live, which was incredible. I just watched, this was honestly the most surprising one. It's like The Rite of Spring is like a Tchaikovsky ballet. It's something I never would have seen on my own, but it was so like such a
Yeah.
cool experience. They poured they had like part of the show, I think like they poured dirt across the entire
Wow.
stage. Like there's a 30-minute intermission between like the first and second half for them to wheel out 5 dumpsters of just like peat moss and just dump it.
What?
And it was so funny because like as they dumped them, people were applauding. Like everybody was all in on them. Like they were raking it. I'll
Yeah,
have to send you
please
pictures
do.
because it was so cool. But I love that class. I'm in a sociology of music class, which is pretty wild as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, it's really interesting. We've talked a lot about just like kind of the different way music groups function. It's essentially teaching like sociology and sociologists theories through the lens of music. Like what would, Weber say about like how music affects
Yeah.
mental health or whatever. Like really interesting
Ooh.
topics. So I really love that. And then the last class I'm in is stats. So just like a classic old statistics class. Kind of
Yeah.
fun. Not too bad, but
That's awesome.
yeah.
Sociology of music.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That is
Yeah.
so cool.
I love that.
Amazing. Getting back to your
So much fun.
podcast, we always ask this to anyone who hosts a podcast, and it's always the most difficult question, and I don't even know how to answer it. So if you can't answer it, that's totally fine. But out of everyone that you have interviewed, and you don't have to say us, do you have like a favorite? Do you have a favorite episode, or do you have an episode that was maybe like most impactful to you? Favorite guest situation?
That's
Yeah.
really tough. It is. Like, I think interviewing you two and like this developing relationship has been something really cool. Like, this is, I think, the most that like meeting and interviewing a guest has turned into this kind of long running thing. This is like completing the
Yes.
trilogy of Maddie, Liz, and Carter podcast episodes,
I
which
love
is
it.
really fun. So I love that. I think the one that I definitely, I have interviewed so many, like talked to so many cool people. So this is like, I
Yeah.
love all of them. It's hard. It's
Yeah.
like picking a child. There's one episode, kind of my first proper interview, like when you were talking about cold emailing
Yeah.
and being super nervous. There's a podcaster and more than he's also an entrepreneur. His name is Michael Canavo. If you're aware of, he founded the company Super 73. They make like electric
wow.
motorcycles, which are very cool. Motorcycles and e-bikes. So like, I think they're finally breaking into like the street legal motorcycle thing. I was not like a motorcycle or an e-bike guy though. I was a
Yeah.
Star Wars fan, and he hosted a Star Wars podcast called The Rex and Around Show and like a TikTok platform, which is how I found him. And he doesn't do the show much anymore, but he was, I think, one of the first, like, I feel like a lot of fan groups can become super
Yeah.
toxic, right? You
Oh,
see
for
that on
sure.
TikTok. You see some of the discourse around Marvel, Star Wars. Every community has so many toxic sides to them, but also so many good sides. And Michael really emphasized just bringing out the positivity from it, finding the joy in it, and kind of letting, if there's stuff that bothers you, like, sure, you don't have to focus on that. You don't have to make that your entire identity. Is like, I
Yeah.
hate this thing. And I really loved that whole message that he had. He was like, I remember he released some episodes that kind of coincided with me getting the idea for PositiviTEA, like really just honing in on like some of the cool sides of that. So I think we started Positivity in July, and I think January or February, I had kind of been thinking about it. I just like cold
Yeah.
DM'd him one day on Instagram and was like, this is never going to go anywhere. This will never happen. And then he got back to me within like a day, and I remember like just
Yeah.
jumping like up and down because it was like so sweet. And then we had him on the show, and it was like just such a lovely conversation. He spent, like, I think I said it'd be an hour. He spent like, it ended up being like an hour and
Wow.
20. Like, he was just so sweet. He like, he was like kind of making jokes too. Like, we were having bits and stuff, which was really fun, and having this really great conversation, which was just so remarkably sweet. And I was so nervous too, because if you listen to the first, like, if you listen to me do like the hi, welcome to Positivity, it sounds like I'm talking it, like it sounds like the podcast is on
Oh,
speed.
no.
It's not. I am just like flying through sentences, and it's so funny. But I think the interview was super insightful. It really like kind of hit me at a critical moment, and it's been such a cool thing to talk about because like I remember I was in an interview and somebody, like, I had that on my resume, like, interview guests such as, and they're like, you talked to the founder of Super 73? And I was like, yeah, and talking about that. So it's really cool. Like, I just think that episode was just such an impactful thing. I want to work for them one day, honestly, or at least like intern, see what it's all about, head to sunny California.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so
yes,
it was so much fun. But I love all of them too. But that's just the one that comes to mind.
It's such a hard. Whenever like somebody asks us that question, I can't answer it.
Yeah. Do you have one though? Can I ask you the question?
I think I had a very similar experience of like cold emailing people, having no idea, not really even expecting them to see it.
Yeah.
And then having them respond within like 10 minutes. I'm like, yeah, sure, absolutely, whenever you guys are free. And it's like, wow.
Yeah. We just did an interview with, I don't know if you've heard of PositiviTEA. They're a production company that has worked on a bunch of really cool movies. I can't remember any of them. No, I'm just kidding. Roma.
Yeah.
Was one that just came out. Judas and the Black Messiah. Yeah.
Oh wow.
So,
yeah, like I've heard of those movies.
They're really big on like pairing film and activism and like social impact, which we love. And we were able to talk to somebody from there, Kyle, who is their communications manager. So that was really cool. I think that is a favorite.
That's
right
so
now.
cool.
And of course you.
Of
but
course.
yeah, but getting to connect with you so many times has been really cool too.
Yeah, it's so much fun. Yeah, this has been like, I feel like the opportunities that have come from doing things like podcasting like this are just so cool. Like, because I feel like before that I'd see people like that and I'm like, oh, this would be fun to talk to this person. But like the ability of like podcasting, where like you can actually kind of go do that, and like I guess you could always just reach out to somebody even if you don't have a podcast and be like, hey, I'd love to hear more about what you have to say. Like, could we just Zoom for a little bit? That's totally like that's a normal thing too. I think for me, I like the safety of making it a podcast and like kind of having a thing to do it with. But I think even still, like, even if I never made the Student Counsel, I probably still could have been like, hey, can we talk for a little bit? I'd love to hear what you have to say about Northwestern and the clubs you're in or U of M. Like,
we
cool
say
stuff.
all the time that like this is a very selfish thing that we're doing. Like, we just want to talk to people we want to talk to. Yeah.
And I'm curious, Carter. You seem like a very like curious person. I love that like you are so invested. You can just tell when we're in an interview with you, you care so much about your guests and you really want to learn from them. I'm interested, where did podcasting come from? Did you listen to a lot of podcasts? Were you a fan of a podcast? How did that start?
Yeah.
That's a good question. The origin story I feel like happened in two phases, because the first podcast I ever remember like properly listening to in like middle school, I was a big fan of Rhett and Link and Good Mythical Morning. If you've heard of that show. I haven't kept in touch with them as consistently recently, but I remember I listened to like their show Ear Biscuits. Like they revamped it when I was like big in a Good Mythical Morning phase. So that was like my first podcast experience. And then kind of shortly after that, in like 8th grade, a show came out called Bacon and Eggs, and it was a movie review podcast, movie lovers show. And it was another YouTuber, the Super Carlin Brothers, who I'd followed, had like guested on an early episode. And it was hosted by the Super Carlin Brothers' brother, the one that's not on the YouTube show. But that was, I think, the first podcast where like I listened to it and was just kind of immediately hooked. And like I listened to it, or I remember I was like, they came out in October and I was listening to them in like December of that year in like 2017.
You're early.
And that was a really great show. I was an early one, which was fun. And like kind of getting involved in like, they had a Facebook group, which was the reason I joined Facebook.
Awesome.
And like, so that was really fun. Like I jumped into that community early, and that was really cool. So I think that was like the first, like, oh, this is like what a podcast does. And even it's funny, like, I've watched that show. Now it's 5 years. It's been out for 5 years now, which is crazy. But like it was interesting to follow their progression, because I feel like you see this with any podcast where like I go back and listen to the episode that I started with, and it's a great episode, but you can be like, you can tell that's an earlier one, right? I feel this so much with my show too. Like I'm not, and that's not a diss at all. That's like you can just see the progress that's happened. But it's cool to like, I think growing with that show was the one I'm like, oh, cool. And their community, I think, had so many people who are also interested in doing podcasts or doing other stuff. So I think that was probably what started it. And then the internship was finally the place where I found some people to kind of jump in it with. Because I tried doing stuff solo and just kind of never really, I think I always needed a little level of accountability.
Yeah.
In general, like having another person there. Like, so once I had a team behind me, I think it made things easier. We could subdivide and I had that accountability and people to talk about things with.
That's awesome.
Yeah. How about you two then? I'm actually really curious about this now. What was your first podcast kind of story?
It was kind of, I don't know where the thought came from. I listened to like a few here and there. I wasn't really like a follower of any, but I just would listen to it, if I was like folding the laundry or something. And I don't really know where it came from. I kind of was just like, wanted to make something, and that seemed like something that we could do. And I went to Liz and was like, do you want to do a podcast? And she was like, absolutely not. Like,
Oh, I wasn't that hard, I don't think. But I was like, why would we do that?
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was very much a learn on the go sort of thing. We had no idea what we were doing.
Oh,
we,
yeah.
We, kind of listened to podcasts for fun, but it wasn't anything like that we really loved and were passionate about. It kind of just happened. But yeah, I'm sure you know that, like, and we talked about it earlier, but just like totally learning on the go. And I feel like I'm still learning so much.
Oh my god.
We've been doing it for 2 years and I still feel like there's so much left to learn. But I think it's cool to go back and look at that progress.
Yeah, it really is on both the shows that I think I've done and the shows that I just get to listen to and I've been a fan of for a long time. Yeah, no, I think the podcasting is the best thing as a learn on the go a little bit, like I think that because that was always what got me is I'd kind of start thinking and then I'd like overthink a little bit and then it would just like, it would never be the right time, right? Sometimes you just have to literally, Positivity I thought of on a Tuesday, we recorded on a Friday, we released on a Sunday.
Yeah.
That was because we had a due date on a Sunday, we had to create like a piece of content for the internship, they didn't care what. I don't think they ever ended up doing anything with them, but like the due date helped me a lot where I was like, okay, this just has to happen. And then once we had one loop in, like 1 week down, we were able to kind of repeat the process and it worked out.
That has helped us a lot too. We're in an audio class this year and we have to create a podcast. And so we have just been doing our podcast for the project, but it really helps to have that deadline. Yesterday we batch created a bunch of episodes and that really does help. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I've never done a proper batch creation before. I'm excited to do it one day though. Like, the podcasts are like, we record like 4 episodes in a session and I'm just
it's
like, oh my gosh. But
yeah, and we're doing kind of like mini episodes, so they're like 5 to 10 minutes, so it's not as bad, but it's a lot. We like scripted everything before and then just sat down for like an hour and a half and went through them all. It's fun. It's a lot though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. I think the first 3 Stuco episodes I recorded, because I did those earlier in advance. I think I did those 3 days in a row. Like, just by happenstance, the interviews lined up like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday after school.
Even
and I'm
that's
like, okay,
a lot.
That's fun. So that was a really cool experience.
To
Yeah.
have to edit all those and
Oh yeah, there's a reason it took from February to April for that to release. But yeah.
That's awesome. Shifting gears a little bit, you had this really cool shaved ice venture this summer, and I want to hear all about it. Where did the idea come from?
Oh, I'm so excited.
How did you make it happen? What's your favorite flavor? I want all the deets.
All the tough questions. We'll get to favorite flavor in a bit because that's my politician's. I'll give you a politician's answer for that one.
I love
it. But that came from. So Shave Ice came from. It came from, I think, my mom, because we kind of co-started the venture, and I was doing more like the front stuff and kind of leading that end, but it was definitely both our ideas and kind of running logistics of it. That was another COVID thing. So much of this stuff kind of came out of like pandemic. We became like, people had like sourdough bread and stuff. We became ice people in the pandemic. I no better way to describe that to you than like, I think at some point early on, like kind of after like maybe like fall of 2020, we got like one of the ice machines that you can like, it makes like the crunchy nuggety ice, if you know what I'm talking about. Phenomenal ice, the best kind of ice. But like that was kind of, so we just kind of had that for fun as like, making like mocktails, cocktails, whatever, like stuff like that, just to spice of life a little bit. And then another one, my mom grew up in California, and so she was around a lot of the shave ice stuff on the West Coast, and we got just a shave ice machine. I think it was like on Costco.com or whatever, just as like a bringing some fun. Like I'd always enjoyed shave ice. I get it in like Disney World as a place you can get sushi and shave ice, and it's phenomenal if you're in
Good to know.
Epcot. So I would always enjoy it, like places like there, and that was really fun. So we got the machine, and then when we got the flavors, we just really wanted to get like the syrups that were like kind of the real high quality stuff because we enjoy that. Like I think it's something that, you know, it was started as a hobby, so we were getting like, it's harder shave ice syrups. They're from Hawaii. They have like real fruit in them, so it's like really nice quality stuff. And that was like purely, we did that probably from like September of 2020 personally up and through July of 2022. Like it was just like we had this shave ice machine and we would make these for fun. We'd bring it out during like, you know, when COVID kind of lax and we'd have people over, bring them out there. Like it was just a really fun endeavor. And then that summer we kind of wanted to travel the summer before college, and so I had not really like locked down like a consistent summer job like I had in the past. And so I was like, I guess this is the time for like to do something like this where you control your own hours, kind of start like running a little business. So I just started it literally in the front yard of our like house until the HOA was like, you can't do that. And I was like, okay. So then we a little bit of a buzzkill, but it was nice. I ended up moving to it was honestly a bit of a better location, but that was a really nice thing. I did that kind of through like July until like the start of August, and it was great. I could kind of control hours. It was a lot of like, it was definitely a learning curve even to that too, where like we just literally jumped into it. Like I was kind of nervous. I didn't really want to do it, but my mom was like, we should just do it like today. So like July 5th, like we had company over July 4th. I had like gotten over COVID like a week and a half prior. Everything was healthy. But I was like, you know, like, but it was nice. I just kind of jumped into it. And after that, I got a rhythm going, kind of started to generate a little bit of hubbub, and eventually was like kind of getting consistent customers. It took time to figure out like the timing of it. You know, it was a lot of like, I'm going to go out on a Saturday from noon to 4 and we're going to see what that brings. And sometimes it was like 2 people, and you just kind of had to rock with that and be like, I will not go out at this time again, and we'll kind of keep learning. But it really was a great proof of concept, and it was super fun. And I'm definitely hoping to bring it back next summer. Maybe bring it to college next year. We'll see. A little like football tailgate thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll give you my politician's answer for favorite flavor. I love all of them. As like in the classic sense, there's blue raspberry, there's tiger's blood, which is strawberry and coconut. Like those are just lovely. I think the one that I loved, because we were getting these from Hawaii, there were some that were like not typical shave ice or snow cone flavors, which was my favorite part, because I love it when people will either kind of go in open-minded. Like I was able to give people their first shave ice, which was such a cool experience at times. Like that was wonderful. And I love it if they're like, either like make me something or kind of what do you like? My favorite, I think, was called, it's crackseed plum. So it's this like pickled plum. It's based on like a Japanese treat, because a lot of shave ice comes from like Japanese culture. Then they brought it to Hawaii, and there's kind of this like 2 different types of it. So I think I love that flavor a lot. It's just like, it's this like sweet, sour, like mix in one, like with this nice fruit to it as well. That's definitely like personally a go-to.
Making me hungry right now.
Yeah, I know. I'll mail you some. It'll be a great box of
soup,
water and syrups. But
I love it.
Yeah, soup. But,
do you think this sort of like entrepreneurial, is that a word? That's a word, I think.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do you think this is something you want to pursue in the future? Would you want to own a small business after college?
I definitely think it is. There's like, the business school at U of M definitely puts a lot of emphasis on consulting and finance. And I want to explore consulting, but I also kind of went into it also really wanting to look at entrepreneurial work. And I just love like kind of taking, it happens with podcasts, it happens with Shave Ice, like having like just kind of a thought, having an idea, and like putting that into reality, and like the whole process behind that is something that's so cool. Like to get to see something that was literally just kind of hanging out in some neurons exist in the real world and have an impact on people is something remarkable. So I definitely would love to continue that and explore that. So
that's awesome. Well, I can't wait to see where that takes you. Yeah. We're so grateful for you, Carter, for sharing your time with us today.
I'm so grateful for you too. I cannot wait to see where communications takes you. You two are definitely going places. It's so fun to like just watch your show and see everything that's come out of it. It's like literally, it's like, it was interesting kind of as positivity dwindled. It was really nice to still like, I was really always happy to see you two, because I'm like, okay, somebody is still voicing this kindness into the world and like pushing that forward. And that really just like, it was a very comforting thought, and it's such a great podcast.
Well, thank you, Carter. You are doing amazing things with your podcast as well. And it's really cool like to watch everybody. Like we've had a couple different guests on just that are our age, to watch everybody grow and so cool. See where they end up. It's been really, really, really cool.
It's amazing. We're in a really cool phase of life right now. There's so much happening, but I feel like we're going to kind of come out of the next 4 or 5 years, and it's going to be like some big things are happening. So
For sure.
it's cool.
Cool.
For sure.
Yeah.
Thank you, Carter. This is
If
awesome.
people want
Thank
to,
you. Thank
Yeah,
you so
want to
much.
listen to any of your podcasts, how they find you.
Yes.
Ooh, I'm pretty much everywhere. Student Counsel and PositiviTEA are on all the pod places I think that you can find. Really, Samsung Podcast is a thing. That's where like Stuco has like a third of our listenership.
that's
I don't know what that is. So if you have a Samsung TV, I guess you can listen to podcasts on
Interesting.
that.
We
which
do
is
have a
fun.
Samsung TV, so we should try that out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really fun. So yeah, Student Counsel and PositiviTEA are out anywhere. Otherwise, my Instagram I think is Carter D Lucas. So if you want to find me there, I have like the link tree to everything else. You can check in on Shave Ice if you're in the Saugatuck, Michigan area next summer. I guess come and see, have some Shave Ice, hang out. So yeah, thank you so much for having me on. This has been a blast as always. Cannot wait to keep chatting with you all again
thank
soon.
you, Carter. We finally completed the trilogy.
We did it.
It happened. It only took us a
We
year.
did it. It only took us 1 year, but hey, on the movie spectrum, that's like usually like 6 years for a trilogy if you're doing
Exactly.
good. So
Exactly.
I'll take that.
Always the optimist, Carter. Thank you.
Yeah, always the optimist.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for listening to this week's episode.
For more kindness content, check out our Instagram at Courageously Kind Podcast.
And if you liked this episode, please consider leaving us a review on Apple Podcasts and feel free to share this show with your friends.
Take good care, and we'll see you back here real soon.